If anyone wants to contact you or your members, what is your advice to them now?
In one of the cases, it was even obvious that the date of birth on the admissions letter and the date of birth on the person's passport was incorrect, and they still were issued a visa.
And do you say that integrity of immigration system is at stake?
What went wrong at IRCC? What went wrong at CBSA? What went wrong at Colleges Canada? And at these colleges, we need to know everything, and it needs to be public. The public needs to know and deserves to know the truth. That IRCC made mistakes when it issued visas based on fake admissions letters.
And why they have found now, and only sufferer will be the students who spend time and pay taxes here.
Students, as far as I know, didn't know these were fake documents, and now they're being held accountable for something that happened years ago. Is this a systemic problem in immigration? We want witness testimony from these international students, their deportations to be temporarily suspended.
ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੋਅ 'ਚ ਅੱਜ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹੈ ਟੌਮ ਕੈਮਿਕ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਸ਼ੈਡੋ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ, ਰਿਫਿਊਜੀ ਐਂਡ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ। ਸੋ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਜੋ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਆਇਆ ਕਿ 700 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਹੁਣ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ 100 ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੁਣ ਵਰਕ ਪਰਮਿਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਪੋਰਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ। ਕੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ? ਫੇਕ ਕਾਲਜ ਦੀਆਂ ਅਸੈਪਟੈਂਸ ਲੈਟਰ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਲਜ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਏਜੰਟ ਹੈ ਇੰਡੀਆ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ, ਬਾਕੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ 'ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਕੇਸ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਆਏ ਹੈ ਫॉर ਲਾਸਟ 2-3 ਈਅਰਸ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੇ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਕਰ ਲਈ, ਵਰਕ ਪਰਮਿਟ ਲੈ ਲਿਆ, PR ਦੀ ਫਾਈਲ ਲਾਈ, ਅਤੇ CBSA ਨੇ ਆ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਆਊਟ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਫੇਕ ਲੈਟਰ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ। ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡੇਟ 'ਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹੈ ਕ੍ਰਿਟਿਕ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ, ਸ਼ੈਡੋ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ, ਰਿਫਿਊਜੀ ਐਂਡ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਹੈ, ਮਿਸਟਰ ਟੌਮ ਕੈਮਿਕ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਸ਼ੌਨ ਫਰੇਜ਼ਰ ਔਰ ਸਟੈਂਡਿੰਗ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਚੇਅਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ, ਸਲਮਾ ਜ਼ਾਹਿਦ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਬੁਲਾਈ ਜਾਏ, ਇਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਏ। So, Mr. Tom, thank you for joining with us today. Most welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Tom, if you can tell us about your role as a shadow minister of immigration in this dispute which is happening because students, they are on work permit, they are sitting on a protest. What your party, many of the MPs, they wrote it to the immigration minister, to the chair of standing committee immigration. What letter was that about?
So the letter we wrote on May 26th to the immigration minister is basically, we've been working on this for a few weeks now, trying to get more information about specific international students who were given these fake admission letters to post-secondary. So last week we asked the minister, and we asked the chair of the immigration committee, the parliamentary immigration committee, to have an emergency meeting sometime this week so that we could talk about these cases, because we believe that IRCC made mistakes when it issued visas based on fake admissions letters. And it's an error they didn't catch at the beginning. And then years afterwards, when these international students had finished their studies in Canada and were applying for permanent residency after working here, that they were being found out to have entered Canada through fake documents that were issued to them. The students, as far as I know, didn't know these were fake documents, and that these were issued by these malicious immigration consultants, and now they're being held accountable for something that happened years ago. So there's been a serious breakdown in the system here. We all believe in an orderly, compassionate immigration system, and all of us in Canada are like, well, we expect the civil service to do its job, and we're wondering, why didn't they do their job at the beginning? And that's why we want this emergency meeting. We want to know, first of all, are these just a few cases? Are they dozens? Are they hundreds? Or are they potentially, is this a systemic problem in immigration? Is this thousands or tens of thousands of people? We just don't know. I've heard all types of different numbers. I have some of the case files on my desktop that I've looked at, and I want to know more. And the only way we're going to get more information is by having an emergency meeting so we can pass a motion to force the Immigration Department and the Canadian Border Services Agency to testify. But we also want the organization in Ontario and in Canada that represents the colleges to come and testify so we can hear from them to explain to us on the other side how does the system work exactly? How does the system work? Does immigration, does IRCC contact the colleges? Do they do their due diligence to double check the documents to make sure they're correct? And then the last thing that's incredibly important on why we need this emergency meeting, why you have so many conservative MPs speaking out on this, is We want witness testimony from these international students who are being threatened with deportation. We want them to be their deportations to be temporarily suspended so they can give us their testimony before the committee. Because otherwise, what the government is doing by expediting, by quickening the deportations, is getting rid of witnesses. These people are witnesses to fraudulent admissions letters, and they have information. Their interaction with Immigration Canada and their interaction with CBSA is valuable witness testimony that our committee desperately needs.
So, Minister, you think that they should get enough time and chance to represent and in front of standing committee these all students, those who are protesting now, because they say they spent 3 to 4 years here in Canada. They studied, they got a work permit. How come they got the work permit if their letters were fake? In case they were fake, they should get a fair chance to represent themselves. And do you say that integrity of immigration system is at stake?
So the integrity of the system is at stake. This entire series of events for every single one of these students calls into question whether we actually have a safe, secure, compassionate system, whether we have a system that has integrity to it. Because you're exactly right. Even if you were given a fake admission letters, and let's say IRCC made a mistake when it issued you a visa, once you were here and you changed your college, you're supposed to tell the IRCC department, why didn't they catch it then? Afterwards, when you finished your studies and you got a work permit, why didn't they catch you then? Why is it the only time they catch the error they made is when you were applying for permanent residency? And as far as I know, in all the cases I've seen, it's only at that step that due diligence was done. In fact, I actually have an email exchange where a CBSA official is asking a college is the admissions letter issued 3 years before correct? Does it really take 3 years before we do all of these checks? And that's why we need expert testimony from the department. We need the ministers to come in and explain themselves. When did they know this happened? When did they know that there was this series of fraudulent letters that were issued? When did they let the colleges know? When did the colleges know that there was a problem with these fraudulent letters? Is it just, the tweets that the minister issued, I think it was on May 27th, that's not good enough. There was no action plan there. He didn't say what he was going to do. He didn't say what his commitments were to these international students. And it's not good enough for the federal court to get involved, the federal court to say, we will provide a stay of deportation. We want the committee to do more. The committee needs their testimony. The committee needs to hear directly from them, because that is the only way we're going to be able to assure Canadians like you and I and everybody else who's interested in this that the system has integrity to it, that the system actually works the way you and I expect it to work. And so that's why we need that. We need their testimony. We need expert testimony before the committee. We need an emergency meeting, and right now we're not getting it. The Liberal chair of the committee has refused to organize an emergency meeting.
Since the Liberal committee, you said they have refused for the emergency meeting. So what next for these protesting students who have spent a lot of time in Canada? So they are getting orders of deportation. What next? If anyone wants to contact you or your members, what is your advice to them now?
Well, so a couple of things that I can advise them. First of all, they should contact their local member of parliament. If it's a Liberal member, if it's a New Democratic member, if it's a Conservative, they should contact them first and get their help. I need as many Liberal MPs to feel the heat. They need to feel the heat from their communities that they represent in their local areas that say that this is an important issue. They should be paying attention, because they should talk to their Liberal chair. They should talk to their Liberal minister. They should talk to their Liberal parliamentary secretary and the members on that committee who are Liberals, to make sure that this issue can be heard. I know we have a meeting tomorrow, and we'll have a meeting next week as well. Conservatives will fight for international students. At the committee, we'll do all the procedural things we are allowed to do. Our committee right now is considering legislation. That's why we thought an emergency meeting was a good idea, because it wouldn't disrupt the work we're doing on legislation, so that we could hear out these international students and start important work. Because you're exactly right. These students are facing deportation. Time is of the essence. The committee needs to understand what happened and where does the blame lay. And then second of all, you just cannot have a situation where witness testimony is going to be taken away from the committee simply because they'll be deported from the country. when their valuable witness testimony could really help us get to the bottom of what exactly happened and how best can we fix the situation, because we need to give that advice back to the minister. We need to give the minister direction on this. Only the Immigration Committee can do that job.
Minister, the Minister of Immigration, Sean Fraser, is not far away from you in Ottawa. Why don't you pick a phone, call him and discuss all with him?
So, I've met with the minister on a regular basis. This isn't one of the issues I brought up. I haven't had a meeting since I sent this letter. I know it's been a few days now, maybe 4 or 5 days. I expect him to respond to my letter formally and put it in writing. I don't want him to tell me verbally one thing and then go out publicly and tweet something else. I want him to put it in writing. What exactly is he going to do? And I want him to address the request for this emergency meeting, because I want, it's not good enough for me and him to talk behind closed doors. I want it to be in public. I want you as a member, of the journalistic class. I want the public who listens to you. I want them to see what is going on. I want them to see the witness testimony. And this won't give, me and him talking won't give international students an opportunity to speak for themselves as witnesses, as expert witnesses before a committee. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. We need to know what went wrong at Immigration Canada, what went wrong at IRCC, what went wrong at CBSA, what went wrong at Colleges Canada. And at these colleges, we need to know everything, and it needs to be public. The public needs to know and deserves to know the truth.
Minister, thank you very much for taking these concerns of the students, because as you said, that is not only one party who is at fault. There might be many others, those who are responsible for issuing visa for their stays in 3 to 4 years of these students here in Canada, and why they have found now, and only sufferer will be the students who spend time and paid taxes here. So thank you very much, Minister. In the end, you want to say anything to these students?
So the thing I'm going to repeat is, Conservative MPs on Parliament Hill this week and the week after and the week after that, we are going to fight hard to make sure these international students get a fair hearing before the Immigration Parliamentary Committee. They deserve to be heard. We want to make sure that what they have to say goes on the record, that their experience dealing with IRCC and CBSA is made very clear. So we don't let the departments decide what the truth is. We want to hear everybody who's been impacted by this. They are victims of fraud, and we want to hear from them.
So you say that it's not the students' fault only, it's the system failure also. System allowed them to stay here, to get the visa, to come here, and for so long. Now when they are caught, they are the sufferers.
It's definitely a problem with the system, because the system issues the visa. IRCC issued a visa based on fraudulent letters. It cannot be so simple that an applicant can just give whatever pieces of paper. Somebody has to check this information over. We already checked your date of birth, your first name, your last name, your place of residence, your passport number, your travel history. We check all of these things. How can it be that nobody checked whether your admissions letter was fake or not? Now, how can that happen? I have some of these admissions letters that are fakes, according to CBSA and to IRCC. They look very real to me, but they are fakes. In one of the cases, it was even obvious that the date of birth on the admissions letter and the date of birth on the person's passport was incorrect, and they still were issued a visa and were still allowed to enter the country. So this is most definitely a systems failure.
And Minister, there are very many cases we have heard that the IELTS score, IELTS marks, the IELTS letter, the result, that has been edited in the Photoshops, and those IELTS scores are not correct. So system has not cross-checked that whether these scores are correct, whether the college letters are correct, whether these offer letters are correct. So those are also the cases where the IELTS scores are fraudulently created in the Photoshops.
That is quite possible. I mean, this is one of the first times I've heard of people actually editing in Photoshop one of those documents. And, again, a systems problem. We ask for applicants to provide information. And myself as a parliamentarian, my thinking was always, you provide us information, but then we verify, trust but verify, which is you've given us everything that is truthful. Now let's verify whether that's the case. And we've been given assurances for many months, years now, that the system has a very robust anti-fraud built into it. We're using artificial intelligence. We're using machine learning. There's double the staff that there used to be in 2015, and yet mistakes like this happen. So it is a systems mistake, and Conservatives on Parliament Hill have asked for this emergency meeting. We're going to keep pushing for a meeting so that we can have expert testimony come in and so we can get to the bottom of what exactly happened in this situation.
Minister, thank you very much for coming, talking on these important issues which concern many international students. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.